Undercover boss saw his black waitress hiding a broken hand. The truth left him speechless. What kind of waitress shows up with a broken hand so clumsy? Mocking laughter filled the table as the young woman trembled setting down the tray. The manager shook his head. Coworkers whispered insults, all believing she wouldn't last. But from the corner of the room, a man watched in silence, his gaze sharpening. For when the undercover owner drew closer, what he discovered about the waitress with the broken hand left the entire restaurant stunned. Aaliyah stood there, her bandaged hand steady despite the weight of the tray. The restaurant, all gleaming chandeliers and polished wood, buzzed with the kind of crowd that paid more for a bottle of wine than most folks rent. She wore a plain black uniform, no jewelry, no makeup, her natural curls pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was pretty but not the kind that screamed for attention, just soft, clear eyes and a quiet set to her jaw. The customers didn't notice that. They saw the bandage, the plainness, and they judged harshly. One woman at the table, dripping in diamonds, leaned forward. "Sweetheart, maybe try a job that doesn't require two hands." Her friends snickered, sipping their cocktails. Aaliyah's lips tightened, but she didn't reply. She just set the plates down one by one with a precision that didn't match the shaking in her fingers. The moment clung to her heavy, like a weight she couldn't shake. Just 2 weeks ago, she had sat in a doctor's office staring at an X-ray of her hand. The surgeon had been blunt. "You'll need another surgery if you keep stressing it. No heavy lifting." She nodded, knowing she couldn't afford to stop working. Not now. Not when rent was due and her savings were gone. She'd grown up in a world where money was never a question. Private schools, chauffeurs, a family name that opened every door. But that was before. Before the falling out, before she walked away from it all. Now here she was balancing plates in a room full of people who looked at her like she was nothing. Her shoulders squared and she moved to the next table, ignoring the sting of their laughter. A woman in a sleek red dress, her nails painted to match, flagged Aaliyah down with a flick of her wrist. "Excuse me, but this fork is filthy," she said, holding it up like evidence in a trial. Her voice was loud, performative, drawing eyes from nearby tables. Aaliyah glanced at the fork, spotless, and reached for a new one from her apron. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said, her tone even, offering the replacement. The woman scoffed, tossing the dirty fork onto the table with a clatter. Honestly, you would think they'd hire people who know basic hygiene. Her date, a man with a flashy watch, chuckled. "Guess that's what you get with cheap labor." Aaliyah's fingers paused on the new fork, her knuckles whitening, but she placed it down gently and walked away, her back straight as a rod. "Hey, if this hits you, if you've ever felt that kind of judgment, that weight of being dismissed, do me a favor. Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. It means the world to keep sharing stories like this, stories that matter." Alright, let's keep going. The restaurant was packed that night. Every table filled with the city's elite. Bankers, influencers, old money types who tipped big but talked bigger. Aaliyah weaved through them, her bandaged hand tucked close to her side. A man in a tailored suit, his tie loosened and his voice loud, waved her over. "Hey clumsy. You going to drop my steak or what?" His buddies laughed, one slapping the table. Aaliyah paused just for a second, her eyes meeting his. "I haven't dropped anything yet, sir." Her voice was calm, steady, like she was stating a fact. The man blinked, caught off guard, but recovered with a smirk. "Yeah, well, let's keep it that way." She nodded and walked away, her steps even, her tray balanced like it weighed nothing. At the bar, a couple of servers leaned close, their whispers sharp. "She's got to be in debt or something," said a guy with slick back hair and a fake smile for the guests. "Look at that bandage. Probably got it fighting off some loan shark." The other, a woman with bright red lipstick, snorted. "Or her boyfriend's got a temper." They didn't see Aaliyah standing nearby refilling a water pitcher. Her fingers tightened on the handle, but she kept pouring slow and steady. The manager, a wiry guy named Marcus with a permanent scowl, caught her eye. "Aaliyah, you spill one more thing, you're out. I don't care how short-staffed we are." She nodded, her face blank, and moved on. But her good hand brushed against her pocket, where a small worn photo was tucked away, a reminder of who she used to be. The man in the corner, the one watching, hadn't moved. He looked like any other customer, mid-30s, plain, buttoned down, a glass of water untouched in front of him. But his eyes followed Aaliyah, sharp and focused. He'd been coming in for a week now, always quiet, always watching. Nobody knew he was Daniel, the owner, blending in to see how his restaurant really ran. He'd seen the way Marcus barked orders, the way the staff cut corners, the way customers treated people like Aaliyah. And he saw her, really saw her. The way she moved, careful but confident, like someone who'd been trained to stay calm under pressure. He leaned back, his fingers tapping the table, wondering what her story was. A young couple at a nearby table, both scrolling their phones between sips of champagne, didn't even look up as Aaliyah approached. The woman, her hair streaked with highlights, flicked her eyes toward the bandage. "Oh wow, they're really letting anyone work here now," she said loud enough for her boyfriend to hear. He smirked, not lifting his gaze from his screen. "Yeah, what's next? Hiring from the shelter?" Aaliyah's tray didn't waver as she set their appetizers down, but her good hand brushed the edge of the table, lingering there for a moment. She straightened, her voice soft but clear. "Enjoy your meal." The couple didn't respond, already back to their phones, but a nearby server overheard and stifled a laugh, turning away to hide it. Aaliyah's face didn't change, but she adjusted her apron with a slow, deliberate tug. The night wore on and the insults kept coming. A table of young women, all glossy hair and designer bags, giggled as Aaliyah approached. One of them, a blonde with a fake pout, tilted her head. "Oh honey, that bandage is just tragic. You look like you crawled out of a ditch." The others laughed loud enough to turn heads. Aaliyah set their salads down, her movements deliberate. "Anything else you need?" she asked, her voice even. The blonde smirked. "Yeah, maybe a new hand." The table erupted again and Aaliyah's jaw tightened just for a moment. She turned away, but not before her eyes flicked to the blonde's purse, left carelessly open on the chair. A quick glance, nothing more, but it was enough to make Daniel sit up straighter. An older man at another table, his suit wrinkled but expensive, waved her over. He was one of the regulars, always grumbling but never cruel. "At least you didn't spill," he said, almost like a compliment. Aaliyah gave him a small smile. "Thank you, sir." It was the first time she'd smiled all night and it caught Daniel off guard. There was something real in it, something unguarded. He scribbled a note on his napkin, his handwriting tight. Not clumsy, it read. He was starting to think there was more to her than anyone here realized. Halfway through the shift, a busboy dropped a stack of plates near the kitchen, the crash echoing through the dining room. All eyes turned, and a woman in a fur stole, her voice dripping with condescension, called out to Aaliyah. "Guess you're not the only one who can't handle the job." The table around her tittered, and a man in a pinstriped suit added, "Maybe they should start handing out helmets with the aprons." Aaliyah, carrying a tray of drinks, didn't stop moving, but her good hand flexed, her fingers curling briefly. She set the drinks down at another table, her motion smooth, almost too smooth. "Careful with those," she said to the guests, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. The laughter died down, and the woman in the fur stole shifted uncomfortably, reaching for her wine. Then it got worse. A wealthy guy, mid-40s, his face flushed from too much wine, called her over. He was loud, the kind of loud that demanded attention. "Hey, you with the busted hand?" he said, grinning at his friends. "This your big career move, serving us with one good arm?" Before she could answer, he reached for his glass and accidentally knocked it over. Red wine splashed across her uniform, soaking her apron. The table roared with laughter. Aaliyah froze, her hand trembling as she grabbed a napkin. "Oh come on," the guy said, leaning back. "With that hand you can't do anything right." His friends nodded, one muttering, "Pathetic." Aaliyah didn't flinch. She knelt, wiping the wine from the floor with quick, sharp movements. Every motion was controlled, like she'd done this 1,000 times. Daniel watched, his jaw tight. He saw the way her fingers moved, fast, precise, like someone who'd been trained for more than wiping spills. When the guy tossed a few crumpled bills onto the floor, sneering, "Your tip," she didn't touch them. She stood, her eyes locking onto his. "Keep it," she said, her voice low but clear. The table went quiet. The guy's smirk faltered and she walked away, her head high. Daniel's pen stopped moving. He'd seen that look before, that posture. Not from a waitress but from soldiers, operatives, people who'd been through hell and come out steady. He leaned forward, his water glass forgotten. Who was she? He thought back to a moment years ago, standing in a briefing room watching a young woman demonstrate a disarm move. The memory was fuzzy, but the way Aaliyah stood now, shoulders back, eyes cold, felt familiar. A server passing by Daniel's table dropped a napkin. As he bent to pick it up, he noticed something on the floor, a small folded piece of paper that had slipped from Aaliyah's pocket. It was crumpled, worn, like it had been carried for years. He didn't touch it, but he saw her pause at the edge of the room, her eyes darting to the spot. She walked over quick but not rushed and scooped it up, tucking it back into her pocket. Her fingers lingered there, brushing the fabric, and for a split second, her face softened. Daniel squinted, trying to make out the edge of the paper. It looked like a photo, maybe a group shot, but she was gone before he could be sure. Marcus, the manager, was waiting for her at the kitchen door. "You've embarrassed the restaurant," he snapped, his voice carrying over the hum of the dining room. That wine spill, that's on you. Aaliyah's hand clenched at her side, but she didn't argue. She just nodded, her lips pressed tight. The other servers kept their distance, pretending to be busy. Nobody wanted to get caught in Marcus's crosshairs. Aaliyah moved past him, grabbing another tray, her bandaged hand steady despite the pain she had to be feeling. Daniel watched her go, his fingers tapping faster now. Something wasn't adding up. Later, as the dinner rush slowed, a woman in a pearl necklace leaned over to her friend, her voice carrying across the room. I bet she's faking that injury for sympathy tips, she said, her lips curling. Her friend, a man with a slick goatee, nodded. Yeah, probably scamming disability too. Aaliyah was clearing a table nearby, her back to them, but her shoulders stiffened. She stacked the plates carefully, her bandaged hand moving slower now, like it hurt more than she let on. A glass slipped from her grip, rolling toward the edge of the table, but she caught it with her good hand, fast as a reflex. The woman in the pearls gasped, then laughed. See, told you she's faking. Aaliyah set the glass down, her face blank, and walked away, her steps a little heavier. The night took a darker turn. A group of guys already drunk started getting rowdy at a corner table. They were young, rich, the kind who thought money made them untouchable. One of them smashed a bottle on the floor, glass shattering across the tiles. The room went quiet for a second, then the laughter started. Marcus froze, his face pale. The other servers backed away, whispering to each other. One of the guys, a big one with a shaved head, pointed at Aaliyah. Hey, clumsy, clean it up, he shouted. Another shoved her as she approached, and she hit the floor hard, her bandaged hand skidding on the glass. The room erupted in laughter. Useless as expected, one of the guys slurred. Aaliyah's face was blank, but her good hand curled into a fist. Then, in a flash, she was up. The big guy lunged at her, maybe to shove her again, but she moved faster. With one smooth motion, she grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him onto the table. Plates clattered, but nothing broke. The room went dead silent. Her bandaged hand stayed at her side, useless, but her good hand held him down like iron. Don't, she said, her voice low. The guy froze, his bravado gone. Daniel's chair scraped as he leaned forward. That move wasn't random. It was clean, practiced, the kind of thing you learned in training. Military training. He'd seen it before in a dusty gym on a base overseas. His mind raced. Could she have been in the army? The other guys at the table backed off, muttering apologies. Aaliyah let go, stepping back, her eyes scanning the room like she was waiting for the next threat. Marcus stormed over, his face red. What the hell was that? You're done here. She didn't answer, just straightened her apron and walked back to the kitchen. As she disappeared behind the swinging doors, a customer at a nearby table, a middle-aged woman with a sharp bob and a designer scarf, turned to her companion. That girl's trouble, she said, her voice low but venomous. You don't learn moves like that in a diner. She's probably running from something. Her companion, a man in a cashmere sweater, nodded. Explains the hand. Bet she got it in a bar fight, or worse. Aaliyah emerged from the kitchen carrying a fresh tray, and the woman's eyes followed her, narrowing. Aaliyah didn't look their way, but her fingers brushed that pocket again like a reflex, checking for the photo. The gesture was small, but Daniel caught it, his brow furrowing. The next day the restaurant was buzzing, but not with customers. The staff was whispering, their voices low and mean. She's got to be mixed up with gangs, one server said, wiping down a counter. Nobody moves like that unless they're trouble. Another nodded, glancing at Aaliyah as she carried a stack of plates. Probably why her hands messed up. Got in a fight she couldn't win. Marcus caught her at the end of the shift. I don't want trouble here, he said, his voice cold. Quit or I'll make sure you're blacklisted. Aaliyah's jaw tightened, but she didn't say a word. She just grabbed her bag and walked out, her steps slow but steady. Daniel was there, sitting at the bar this time, his laptop open. He'd overheard everything. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, his gut telling him there was more to this. He pulled up the restaurant's employee records, digging into Aaliyah's file. It was thin, too thin. Just a name and address, a start date. No references, no history. He frowned, then made a call. A friend at an old agency owed him a favor. Run a name for me, he said, keeping his voice low. Aaliyah Johnson. Check military records. He hung up, his eyes on the door she'd just walked through. Before the call came back, Daniel noticed a commotion near the hostess stand. A delivery guy holding a stack of takeout bags was arguing with Marcus. I was told to deliver this to Aaliyah Johnson, the guy said, holding up an envelope tucked between the bags. Marcus snatched it, his face twisting. She's not getting special treatment, he snapped, tossing the envelope into a drawer. Aaliyah, wiping down a table nearby, didn't see, but Daniel did. He strolled toward the stand with calculated ease, and when Carl turned his back, Ethan slipped the envelope free. No markings, no label, but its weight spoke volumes. He slid it into his jacket, heart hammering faster than he cared to admit. The truth came the next morning. In his cramped office above the restaurant, coffee growing cold beside him, Ethan stared at the email. Olivia Harper, former Army medic. Discharged 2 years ago after a mission went catastrophically wrong. Her hand crushed while dragging 3 wounded soldiers out of a firefight. A Medal of Valor in her file, alongside a note, recommended for special operations, denied due to injury. Ethan leaned back in his chair, stunned. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a hero, and his staff had been grinding her down like she was nothing. That night, Olivia returned for what would be her final shift. The restaurant buzzed with a restless energy, every table packed. A new group walked in, 3 men in slick suits, voices dripping arrogance. One, a broad-shouldered man with a gold chain glinting against his shirt, snapped his fingers at her. "Hey, you with the bandage. Don't screw up my order, all right? I got a meeting." His words cracked like a whip, condescending, dismissive. Olivia's pen moved swiftly across her pad, her face composed, but he didn't let it go. "Seriously, why are you even here?" Slowing everyone down. His friends laughed. Another chimed in, smirking. "Maybe you're better suited to washing dishes." For a heartbeat, her pen paused mid-stroke. Then she looked up, her eyes steady and unflinching. "I'll get it right, sir," she replied, calm but firm. The man rolled his eyes and waved her off. Later, balancing a tray loaded with drinks, Olivia crossed the floor. Another server clipped her shoulder hard, sending a glass tumbling. It shattered across the floor in a splash of water and ice. The laughter came quick, snickers from a nearby table. A woman in sequins leaned toward her companion, voice pitched just loud enough. "Told you she's a liability." Carl, hovering nearby, sneered. "That's it, Olivia. You're done." Her bandaged hand trembled as she set the tray down. But she didn't argue. Instead, she crouched to mop the spill, her motions deliberate, slow, buying herself moments of composure. Ethan's knuckles whitened around his pen. Rage burned under his skin. The night surged on. A corporate gala packed the dining room, power and money crowding every table. Olivia kept moving, still working despite the looming axe. Then it happened. A man with silver in his hair and venom in his voice rose to his feet, pointing directly at her. You're nothing but trash. Just another servant for people like us." The room fell silent. Forks paused midair. All eyes turned to Olivia. Carl folded his arms, satisfied. "She's out after tonight," he declared, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Servers averted their eyes. Nobody spoke. Olivia stood frozen, her hand trembling, her gaze locked on the floor. Ethan had reached his breaking point. His chair screeched against the tile as he rose. He tore the false name tag from his chest and flung it onto the table. "My name is Ethan Caldwell," he announced, his voice ringing out. "I own this place." The gray-haired man dropped into his seat, suddenly pale. Carl's mouth worked, but no words followed. From his jacket, Ethan produced the envelope. He held it aloft. "This arrived for Olivia today. Anyone care to guess what's inside?" He ripped it open before anyone could speak. Metal clinked against wood as it hit the table, gleaming under the chandelier. "A commendation," Ethan said, his voice sharp as steel. "For valor under fire. For saving lives." He turned his gaze on Olivia, then swept it across the room, from the arrogant suits to the smug servers hiding by the bar. "She dragged soldiers out of gunfire. While all you've done is mock her." His eyes cut back to Carl. "You're fired. Clean out your desk." The silence was suffocating. Nobody moved. Olivia stood motionless, her bandaged hand hanging at her side, her expression unreadable. Ethan crossed the floor, each step deliberate. He placed the medal into her trembling hand, his tone gentler now. "You don't have to stay," he told her softly. "But if you do, you're not just a waitress here. Not anymore." Her fingers curled around the medal, brushing the metal as though grounding herself. Finally, she gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Nothing more. She didn't need to say a word. The room was already shifting, people whispering, phones coming out to capture the moment. The fallout was swift. Marcus was gone by morning, his name scrubbed from the restaurant's website. The gray-haired man, a hedge fund type, got roasted online when a video of his outburst went viral. One of the servers, the slick back hair guy, lost his side gig as an influencer when his sponsor saw him laughing in the background of the clip. The blonde with the designer bag? Her social circle iced her out after word spread that she had mocked a war hero. Nobody mentioned Aaliyah's name in the gossip, but they didn't need to. The truth was out and it weighed heavy. The following week, a regular customer, an older woman with a kind face, approached Aaliyah during a quiet moment. She held out a small card, her hands trembling slightly. "I saw what happened," she said softly. "My son was in the service. He didn't come back. I just wanted to say thank you." Aaliyah's eyes flickered as she took the card, her fingers careful. "I'm sorry about your son," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman nodded, tears welling in her eyes, and walked away. Aaliyah tucked the card into her pocket next to the photo and returned to work, her steps a little lighter. She kept working, the same plain uniform, the same quiet diligence. But people noticed her now. Servers stepped aside, customers left bigger tips, some even offering apologies. She didn't bask in it. She just did her job, her bandaged hand a little steadier with each passing day. Ethan watched from his office, sometimes catching the way she moved through the chaos, calm as ever. He thought about the photo in her pocket, the one she never showed anyone. He didn't need to see it to know it mattered. One evening, as the restaurant closed, a young server, new to the team, approached Aaliyah hesitantly. "I heard what you did," he said, his voice nervous. "In the army? My brother's training to be a medic. Can I ask you something?" Aaliyah paused, wiping down a table, and looked at him. For the first time she didn't look guarded. "Sure," she said, setting the rag down. They talked for a few minutes, her voice low, his eyes wide with admiration. When he walked away, he stood a little taller, like her words had given him something solid to hold on to. Ethan, observing from the bar, smiled faintly. Weeks later, a car pulled up outside the restaurant. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, suit simple but sharp. He didn't speak. He walked in, scanning the room. When his eyes found Aaliyah, he paused. The entire place seemed to hold its breath. A server dropped a fork, the clatter loud in the silence. The man walked over, his steps steady, and stopped in front of her. "You ready?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded, grabbing her bag. No one needed to say his name. They all knew he was her husband, the kind of man whose presence changed everything. The room watched as they left, her hand in his, her steps light but sure. Even the gray-haired man back for some reason looked away quickly. One of the servers, the red lipstick woman, froze mid-sentence. Nobody spoke. Aaliyah didn't look back. She didn't need to. The truth was in the air, heavy, real, and it followed her out the door. Life has a way of judging you before it knows you. It looks at your clothes, your hands, the way you stand, and it decides. Aaliyah walked through that judgment, carried the weight, and kept going. She didn't need to shout her worth. It was there in every step, every quiet glance. You felt that weight, haven't you? The sting of being misjudged, overlooked. You weren't wrong to keep going. You weren't alone in it. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing.